Craig Vahun in the studio. It's Tuesday, so we always have the folks from WRCA in on Tuesday. Lehman Wall and Casey Hooper are in the studio with us. This time, since there was no rodeo last week in Lehman, we're gonna get to focus a little bit about who the WRCA is and what's the difference between the WRCA and the WRCA Foundation. And we're gonna get you actually to start this all off with what is the WRCA?
Well, thanks for having us in again, Craig. And it is good to get to kind of tell your story. You know, sometimes we maybe assume people know that.
Yeah.
And you can't assume. So it's great to have this platform to tell people what we are and what we do. Kind of see WRCA, a lot of times people see that as, you know, this ranch rodeo, this big event in Amarillo that everybody comes to. And that's kind of the face outwardly of WRCA. But really and truly, you know, to think about why this organization was formed, it really was a thought process by a group of guys that just literally were riding horseback one day and said, hey, there's not really an organization out there designed for the cowboy and the Western way of life. And they said, we ought to do something. And lo and behold, you know, 23 years later, here we are. But the concept back in 1995 when it was created was a way to preserve and protect the Western way of life and eventually find a way to support the working ranch cowboy and his family. And that evolved. So Casey will get to tell you a little bit about how that came about. But in the truest sense, WRCA, we are a nonprofit organization that the mission is to preserve and protect the Western way of life. And one of the ways that we do that is through ranch rodeo. And it's a very popular activity for people to gather and you know, have fun at. And that's a way for us to get their attention.
Yeah.
And we get their attention, and then we want to talk to them and remind them this lifestyle does have its challenges as things evolve. It's harder and harder for the families to stay on the ranch and perpetuate that lifestyle. And so that's kind of what we're here for, is to tell that story.
Now, not just, I know part of it is to hang on to the mic there, Lehman.
Okay.
When we're talking about preserving the lifestyle and the way of life, I want you to talk a little bit more about that, because obviously the rodeo part, once you go to these ranch rodeos, is different than what you would go to like something you see on ESPN, professional bull riders. I mean, obviously, that is part of their lifestyle. It's what you see them doing in the arena is a lot of what they do on a daily basis. Talk about some more of the preserving the lifestyle, the traditions, what cowboys grew up with, I guess.
That's a really important point. There's a lot of rodeo you see on TV, and, you know, we're thankful for that because that helps get the bigger message out. But, you know, our guys, this is their life. When you sign up to get your WRCA competition card, your ranch card, what that means is you have a ranch that exists, and you are either an owner of that operation or you're an employee. Mm-hmm. And you have to meet those criteria in order to be able to go to a WRCA sanctioned event. And more importantly than that, when you show up at the event, we're trying to mimic what the guys do and the gals do on a daily basis. Right. Some of it is changed just slightly to be a little bit more fan-friendly as you can. Wild cow milking, for example, the guys don't necessarily just do that on a daily basis. But most of the events are really geared to showcase their skills. And the cool thing is, like Casey and I and Peyton and some of our board members, we get to travel to these events. The guys were literally working that morning. They load up, they drive to that event. Right. They're going to compete. And then by 6 o'clock the next morning, they're back doing what they do every day. And, you know, I've had times for the Ranch Rodeo in November, the World Championship, I've called the guys on Tuesday morning, and you can hear the wind and the cows bellering, and you're like, hey, man, I need your, you know, whatever from them. They're like, hey, I'll get it to you this evening. We're working.
We'll have Tyler Woolfolk on the phone here in a little while, and it's the same thing, because every time that Casey and Lehman come to studio, and we're talking about getting somebody from the rodeo winter on, we always have to give them a 15-minute heads up so they can get somewhere where they can have a clear signal, where there isn't a ton of wind, but there aren't a bunch of noises and stuff that interrupt the broadcast. So,
get up on the hill.
Exactly. And it's still, this is still what these guys have been doing, and their parents and their grandparents and their great parents. It's their way of life being showcased today, just as you would have seen it 100 years ago.
Yeah, you talk about the family. That's a big part of this whole thing. And most of these guys, their dads have competed with us on their ranch team, and now you see, the brothers and the sons and the daughters, and now the younger generation is starting to come up. And that's important because, you have to perpetuate this. It has to be passed. The values that you carry, and people like Tyler and his family, those values are passed on. And that's really cool to see.
Yeah, it'll go away without it, without this type of thing.
That's right.
Just be lost. Casey, we'll put you on the mic now. Now, that's the kind of the WRCA side.
You bet.
Kind of what everybody sees as, like we talked off the air about, it's more than just that rodeo. What does the foundation side of the WRCA do?
Well, the foundation side is kind of a hand up, not a hand out, basically. We're a very prideful lifestyle in the sense that if, for example, a natural disaster took place and your neighbor was wiped out just as big as you were, you call the person that you're familiar with and ask them one thing if they're okay. And they'll say, I'm fine, but I don't need nothing my neighbor does. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the equation, and it seems to me like you're both sitting in the same kind of deal right here. So in 2001, the board needed to form a nonprofit for people to give. So in 2001 is when we became a 501c3. And so that is the nonprofit status in which people can know that they can get a tax break on their donation, which actually was a huge benefit for us because in 95, the idea was there. But how do we make it beneficial for the donor or supporter?
Right.
Because their dollar is extremely important to us, because then in turn it goes out to help. But how do we make it to where we're very thankful for the donor other than just saying, thanks, man, When I do their tax letter or their notification of donation, there's a lot of pride that goes into that piece of paper that we could not do what we do literally without that donor and supporter. And I'm not sure. I've never worked with any other nonprofit, so I don't really know that. I try to sit back and think about what that donor feels that day. Because of our lifestyle, those donors and supporters are doing the same thing we're doing. It's a like-kind deal. We're just the hub where it passes through.
Right.
So, we always say a hand up, not a hand out, because it has a personal meaning. It's that you're going to be okay. Our foundation is a safe place for the working ranch cowboy to fall, basically.
Yeah, and it's not just those natural disasters.
No.
I want to throw out there also, there's some on the happier side. There's lots of scholarships that you'll give out. Then again, if somebody has cancer, I know they can turn to you guys for help. If there's illness in the family, it's not just, I want to get the point out there that it's not just if your ranch has been affected by fire, flood, or famine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not just that. There's also some other parts of the foundation.
Right. And when you're sitting in that seat and you get a call from a family, and it's usually not the cowboy or his wife themselves that call. Usually it's their best friend. That says, Casey, I don't know if you've heard, but this, and this has happened. At that moment, I have to take a deep seat and say a prayer to God and say, okay, give me the strength to be able, one, not to break, and one, to be able to reassure them that it's going to be okay. We're not going to make anybody whole again, because what happens is we budget a certain amount of money each year. But due to the year, we could be under that or we could be a little over. You cannot budget for crisis.
Yeah, no.
And so at that moment, we want the recipients, or we want even the scholarship kids, to know they're not just a number. They're not just an application that comes through. They're not just a phone call. It actually is our lifestyle reaching out to the other working ranch cowboy and saying, hey, you know what? What you got on your plate? And what we talk about is between us and the board. And I'm going to reassure you, this will be okay. Just like with the ranch cards, they have to be able to, and I hate using the word qualify because it's almost
very impersonal.
It is. It's very impersonal.
Yeah.
But there's some folks that we can't do something for, but 9 times out of 10, it's not our job to tell somebody that you're not, it's just kid gloves.
Yeah.
You're working with kid gloves. So when you talk to that person, you're just the soundboard. And so we've paid for headstones. We've done paid for for caskets, funeral arrangements. And I know that just sounds doom and gloom, but there is a side of this that's very, God works through you weird ways, right? And you have to be able to be there for somebody. And so, you know, then there's the good side of it. We watch people heal up and we think to ourselves, you know, we've watched them take that turn, and that money that our donors have given for us to do what we do, we've actually watched them help them with gas, help them with food, help them with room while they're staying at that hospital all banged up, broken ribs and God knows what. And we were able to get the wife and the kids or the husband to that hospital for the reassurance. That right there, we gave them hope. We gave them that step up, the hand up, because they're going to be okay.
Yeah. There's a lot more to the WRCA. And do you want to give any background before we get Tyler on the phone? Is
I'll give the good background.
You want to give? you want to give any background on him? Because again, he's not going to tell us everything about himself.
Well, he will. The Woolfolk family, you know, they compete under Snyder Ranch and Woolfolk Ranch out of the Protection, Kansas area. And both of those families on both sides, both ranches are highly into heritage and tradition. They're very high into wanting their kids to grow up with the same values that they were brought up in. And so the grandfather, the great-grandfather, they're all there and on the ranch. So whenever, and Tyler will probably talk about this, he was actually, I think it was in 09 or 10, he was actually, his best friend went and was diagnosed with cancer. And so he watched how we kind of were the hand up for that family. Right. Every year during championship on Saturday, we do an auction, benefit auction for the foundation, Crisis Scholarship. Tyler had came up with a bit. He's a heck of a silversmith. Right. And he said, hey, I was wondering, I'd like to put this in the auction. And I said, well, absolutely. And we're really not knowing each other that well yet, you know. And he goes, I want to do it because of what you guys did for Davy and Heather Klein. So at that moment, I knew this guy was affected some way. Yeah. And it made it personal. And it was a darn good bit, too. Yeah. I mean, it was a really nice bit. So the family's a very giving family, and they're competitive as heck, too. But we'll let him go ahead and see what we can gather out of him.
Got Tyler Woolfolk on the phone as we speak, and Casey, we just got done talking about him off the air.
Yeah, I was bragging on him, so I hope he doesn't just completely blow this. But I'm just kidding, Tyler. It was actually I was. We were talking a little bit about the foundation and basically how I first met you and how you walked up to me with holding a bit that you'd made for your best friend Davy, and I know it gets a little bit touchy-feely when we talk about foundation stuff, but Woolfolk Ranch has actually been donors, and I want to just basically ask you, Tyler, what was the feeling? When did you first kind of hear about the foundation, and what did it mean to you, basically, as a working ranch cowboy, a rancher, and then watching your best friend go through some stuff? How did you know about us, basically?
Well, prior to doing some of the ranch rodeos, you know, I was just a little bit familiar with the foundation, and not specifically, I just kind of heard through the grapevine. And when Davey was going through his cancer treatments and stuff, I made the phone call down there, and at that time it was basically they'd already put a check in the mail. And that was, I guess, was reassuring that even though the agriculture community and the ranchers and the cowboys, you know, we're spread out all over, it's still such a small-knit community. And for the foundation basically to relieve some of the stress and anxiety from the financial standpoint for Davey was, you know, it meant a lot to us, and I know it meant a lot to Davey's family. And so that was kind of the first time I had even became aware of really what the foundation everything it did.
You were talking about taking off the stress, and actually a lot of times your mind goes, when you're faced with, and I can speak from experience, when you're faced with something that basically they give you that C word, you know, or they give you something that's going to be a terminal deal, the first thing that tell you, how are we going to make it? And when you talk about the working ranch cowboy, you're talking about several different moving parts financially, but we're 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You don't technically have sick leave. You don't technically have vacation days. You can't, it takes a whole crew. If one guy's gone, it takes the whole crew to fill in for them, and they'll do it willingly. But a lot of times, the significant other, be the immediate the kids, the grandparents, one broken arm can put a kink in somebody if you're a day worker, because those are your missed wages. When you have a person going through treatment, they might not be able to have a home. It's all about, and it takes, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's all about the support that we give, not only financially, but you can do it. Like it's almost like we got this kind of a thing.
No, you couldn't have said it better. Whether it be through the fires that were last year and this year, or just, you and I spoke several weeks ago about a friend of ours that a day worked for us. When he had went through a horse accident and it'd been several days since I'd heard, and I called you, and shoot, I don't know how many phone calls you'd already received from Texas to Colorado.
Yeah.
As far as wanting to help out, and I know that meant a lot to Clay and his family, and it means a lot to basically everybody within the cowboy and ranching industry.
Tyler, you said something earlier about maybe spread out all over the country, but really it's pretty small family. And something that kind of caught my attention when we've had donors come in, or whether we're talking with folks that have been on the receiving end, especially on the receiving end, they'll say, this just means more. And when you dig into it, what they're basically saying is the help they've gotten is from people that are just like themselves. This is nothing against government programs or anything like that, but they are receiving financial assistance from people that share the same values and lifestyle as them. And you and your family, a pretty good example of folks that are givers. Touch on why it's special to give to something like this, as opposed to something where your money may be going to folks that really don't share the same lifestyle as you.
2 years ago, my granddad, he passed away, and we, as a family, kind of talked about different memorials, and we kind of came to the conclusion we couldn't think of a better way to honor my granddad than to have memorials sent down to the foundation. And just for what we've kind of previously talked about, as far as being able to help out a day worker, or you name it, whether being given a scholarship to some individuals that are going to go on and pursue what they're, as far as their agriculture or you name it degree, that sure can help out. And we couldn't thought of a better way to honor him. And it's such a humbling experience. We, with the fire last year, we received some support, and it's, I can speak for us, and I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people. It's hard to, I don't know how to put this. We're such an independent industry, I guess is what I'm saying, as far as, we don't really want to ask for help or so on. But the foundation is there for this very purpose, to help when people are in need, and it's coming from people that are just like us. And I couldn't think of a better organization. My dad and I, we were talking the other day, as far as there's so many organizations out there, whether it be nonprofit, so many times you don't know exactly where your money's going. And there's not a doubt in my mind that any money that gets put towards the foundation gets spent in the best possible way.
Well, you talk about somebody who's feeling humble. Us as an organization altogether, WRCA and the foundation, we're humbled by stories like that, Tyler. And I want to step back a little bit on those memoriams that come in. For example, your grandfather, just as much as you honored him, when I see these come in, I always seem to, basically I call it a deep seat, but I think, that's humbling to us. Because your father, your grandfather, your grandmother, your kids, whatever, you had enough trust in us to put their name on something that we do. That actually, as much as it's rewarding for you and memorialized through your family, it's very, very humbling for us. And anybody who would like to donate in honor of or in loving memory of, there's a couple ways you can do it, actually. And being that I don't have social media, and I don't want to mess these terms up, but, you can donate through our webpage, WRCA.org. You can pick up the phone and talk to a human being, 806-374-9722. You can do it through Facebook. You could do it through Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. We're going to get the message.
Tyler, talk about not wanting to ask for help. That I think we can relate to that, because a lot of times the WRCA Foundation, we're not, out there with a hand saying, hey, please support. And we should be doing that more, because the only way that people can really be helped through our foundation is if we have support through donations. This is a great platform to tell people, like you said, if you want to do a memorial, there's one way to do that, Casey. And we have people literally that send a check in once a month, and that's what they do. They have a donation system set up. Every month we'll get a check from them. A lot of them will donate annually. There's a lot of ways that you can give, and just know, as you said, you can trust that these dollars are being put to the best possible use.
Tyler, kudos. We tend to sometimes lean on individuals to tell our story for us, but there's a lot of cowboys out there just like Tyler and Kent and the Woolfolk family and the Snyder boys that use their experience and benefit us through a message. So thank you very much for touching on some of the stuff that knocks the dust off and kind of creates the molly grubs a little bit. But it's stories like this, and stories we'll continue to tell, that drive home the force that we're always faced with that every day of our lives. Our job is extremely occupationally hazardous. I don't know if that's even a word, but Discovery Channel needs to probably follow. Tyler has a son named Cooper. They need to follow him at least one day. Oh, yeah. He's a character. He's a character.
Oh, yeah.
Tyler, thank you.
Keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, Tyler, we appreciate you coming on and kind of help tell folks a little bit about what the foundation is and how it affects people.
No, I'm glad to help, and it's such a great organization, and the people within the organization sure make it the organization that it is.
We appreciate you, Tyler, man.
We'll see you in June.
Yes, sir.
See you at Houston.
Nope, sounds great. Look forward to it.
All right, man.
Tyler's got to get back to work. He's like, y'all done with me? I got to start the tractor back up.
Right. Tyler, tell everybody hello for us.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye.
Yeah, huge thanks to Tyler Wolf. I'm going to say his name wrong. Woolfolk. That is a tough name
you got it,
to say. There's a lot of letters that normally don't go together in your everyday speech.
Caseyisms.
The OLs. The OL is not an easy. Sounds like a great guy, and we'll have more of these type of stories in the future. Matter of fact, we're talking about maybe getting some of the scholarship kids on the phone, because that's a neat thing. Maybe into next week we'll get into some of the scholarship
Absolutely.
kids.
The scholarships, college is wrapping up.
Yeah. Yep.
Getting ready to get a lot of their semester grades and see if they're eligible for next year, and we're rolling on to the next. That's
right. But how do they donate? Okay, so we hear Tyler, and we've been talking about the foundation, and Lehman really touched on it. But if like me, I got nothing to do. I couldn't tell you. You said something in that interview there, and I'm like, what did she just? No,
probably. I probably mumbled.
I can't tell you. I got nothing to do with the ranching industry, except I know they're listening, and this is sort of this is how we got involved with y'all to start with. It was like, how do we give back to all these ranching people listening to us? So I became a member. Is that the easiest, best way most simple way to help out, is to become a member? Or is it to go to these rodeos, or is it to buy stuff?
Well, anytime you can support WRCA as a whole, we're extremely appreciative. So yes, being a member, buying stuff through Cowhand Supply House, but to make an impact on the foundation is just a hard-earned dollar, straight up donating. So call the office, send us something in the mail. Also, you can do it on Giveify.com. You can go and do it and follow us on Facebook. But basically, if you want to make a difference in these individuals' lives through crisis and scholarship, it's through donation dollar. WRCA.org, probably the best place to start. And if you've got more questions, and if all this baffled you, I would just suggest that you keep tuning in every Tuesday around this time, and we'll have more and more on as the year goes on, all the way into the rodeo. I'm laughing because I stay baffled all the time. I have lips, but I do not use them. But the key thing of it is we are a nonprofit. We are a 501c3. Yep. Your dollar is taxed. You will get a tax deduction for that. And I will send you a letter when that donation comes through.
Yep. WRCA.org, or if you just want to order a cool coffee mug. Or tell you what, those coffee mugs, you got folks that live up north. I got a relative in Chicago that just kind of already know what I'm getting them for Christmas, because they love that stuff. They just think, it's like when my musicians go overseas, they say they go to these concerts and they bill them as Texas country music artists. So these people show up in their chaps and their big hats and their leather vests, and you know what I mean? Like
I'm going to keep my mouth shut
because it's like straight out of a John Wayne movie.
They got their pistols on their
That's right. So if you want to send a coffee mug to somebody in Chicago and tell them that, it was
and
used
once
on
again, we saved somebody. Once again, we're making Craig look really, really good.
I'm going to set it up there with some coffee stains in it. It said I stole it from a ranch. Real cowboy was using it. Shot at me 6 times.
This is the official Tyler Woolfolk coffee mug.
That's right.
He drank out of it yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spit's still in it.
So, WRCA.org, CalHandSupplyHouse.com. But donate. We appreciate you guys for all you do and just keeping it all going. It's a tough job to I know you've got plenty of helpers too, but to do it full time to help run a foundation, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So,
well, we're going to say we always, when we do our sanctioned rodeo deal, we're always thanking sponsors. But right now, I want to take just a second and thank the people that are making this possible for us. And Craig Vahun, our good friend here, 95.7. You guys, I know you're fans of this radio station, but we are especially proud to be aligned with them because of their caring heart for the rancher and this WRCA message. They're the ones giving us this platform to come talk to you every week. So, Craig, we appreciate you, bud. Appreciate what you do.
You're welcome. You guys make it easy. All right, we'll catch you next week. Next week, we'll talk some scholarship stuff, and which is a neat thing that you guys do, and I'm sure a lot of people don't understand that you follow these kids all the way through school, so we'll get into some of that. Appreciate Lehman Wall, Casey Hooper of WRCA. Appreciate you guys for coming in.
Thank you.